Have you ever noticed with ADHD that things can seem fine for a few days and then suddenly it feels like everything is falling apart? And not because something huge happened, but dozens of tiny things just start piling up. A shirt on the chair, a package on the counter, a dish in the sink, and before you know it, you're spending the weekend trying to catch up. I spent years trying different organization systems, cleaning schedules, and productivity hacks. Some helped, but most didn't last. And over time, I realized something. The people who stay on top of cleaning their homes aren't necessarily cleaning more. A lot of them simply have rules, simple rules that stop small messes becoming big problems. So today I'm sharing 10 ADHD home rules that help me do exactly that. ADHD home rule number one is the floor is not storage rule. One thing I've noticed about ADHD homes is clutter loves the floor. The problem is once something hits the floor, it starts feeling permanent. One shirt becomes three shirts becomes seven, a package becomes a pile, and before long, you've created obstacles everywhere you walk. So I made a rule. The floor is for walking. Not storage, not sorting, not a temporary holding area. It's made for walking. So when something lands on the floor, it needs a destination. And that's because when the floor gets crowded, everything starts feeling harder. The room looks messier, cleaning takes longer, and every time you walk in the room, your brain has more visual information to actually process. So this rule exists for one reason: to stop tomorrow's mess becoming next week's big problem. And here's a small example. I have a laundry basket on the floor, shoes on the floor, an Amazon box on the floor, and then here's an example of a big problem. Look at all this stuff on the floor right here. My clothes spread out. I really couldn't walk through there without tripping over some clothes or even just walking across clothes on the floor. That's when you see a big issue. ADHD home rule number two, the chair is not a closet rule. And here is the thing. When I said that, you know exactly what chair I'm talking about. Every ADHD home seems to have one. It starts with one shirt, one pair of pants, one hoodie, just clothes piling up over time. And then suddenly what happens is that chair becomes a closet. And the thing is, the problem is not really the clothes. The problem is all the unfinished decisions. Every item on that chair represents something you have not decided yet. Do you put it away? Do you wear it again? Do you wash it? Do you just deal with it later? And so I made a rule. The chair does not store clothes. If something lands there, it gets handled before bed. Not when I feel motivated, not when I have more energy, before bed. And that's because chairs just become clutter magnets, and clutter magnets can become clutter mountains. And here's an example of how that happens. You throw one piece of clothing on a chair, you keep throwing clothes onto the chair until a pile of clothes starts to accumulate on the chair. That pile can become like a mini mountain of clothes, and it might become a big mountain of clothes eventually if you don't handle the clothes in the chair. Now, once it becomes a big pile, you might just feel like it's too big of a pile. I'm overwhelmed by it. And then with ADHD, you start to avoid that pile and it never gets smaller. ADHD home rule number three is the countertop stay 80% clear rule. This rule changed my house more than almost any other. And that's because most clutter doesn't start in closets. Most clutter starts on surfaces, especially countertops. At first, it's just one item, then another, and then another. And then your brain stops seeing individual items and just start seeing clutter. And so my rule is simple. Countertops stay 80% clear. Not perfect, not stylish, just mostly open. For example, a coffee maker can stay, a fruit bowl can stay, but random clutter does not get permanent counter space. And the reason this works is because clutter becomes more obvious sooner. When most of the counter is empty, one new item really stands out. And remember this, we're not trying to get ahead, we're trying to stop from falling behind. And a clear counter helps me catch clutter while it's still small. If you're enjoying the content and getting value out of the content, then subscribe to the channel and like the video. ADHD home rule number four is the one-touch rule. ADHD often turns one task into five. For example, take a piece of mail, you pick it up, you put it down, you move it, you might move it again, and somehow you have not moved that item, moved that mail 4 times. So what I did, I started following the one-touch rule. If possible, I only handle something once. Mail gets open, a dish goes into the dishwasher, a jacket gets hung up, and that's not because I'm more disciplined. It's because every extra touch creates more work later. This is a setup problem and not a willpower problem. And here's an example of how much we can move mail around 2, 3, 4 times when I should just pick it up and take it to wherever it needs to be taken to. And ADHD home rule number 5 is the never leave empty-handed rule. And the great thing about this rule, it takes almost no effort. Every time I leave a room, I take one thing with me. Just one, not 10, one thing only. It could be a plate, a shirt, a piece of trash. Most of us walk throughout our homes dozens of times a day. And so this rule simply turns all those trips into maintenance. And here's something important to know. Tiny actions repeated often start adding up. And before you know it, clutter has fewer chances to pile up. And this is important to remember. Most people look for that perfect motivation. I look for opportunities. And you can see this rule in action as I'm picking up things and taking one thing from one room to another to make sure I do not leave a room empty-handed. ADHD home rule number 6 is the 5-minute rescue rule. The moment I notice things starting to slip, I don't schedule a cleaning day. I don't make a giant checklist. I don't wait until Saturday. All I do, I set a timer. I set it for 5 minutes. That's it. And that's because 5 minutes right now will save me 5 hours or more later. And think about this. Clutter grows, laundry grows, dishes grow. The longer they sit, the bigger they become. And a lot of ADHD people think they're bad at maintaining, but oftentimes we simply wait too long to intervene. And the cool thing is, 5 minutes is enough to interrupt the slide. And this is truly one of the biggest mindset shifts for ADHD. We need to remember, we don't have to fix everything today. And remember this, we're not trying to get ahead, we're just trying to stop from falling behind. ADHD home rule number 7 is the visible wins rule. For years, I thought every room needed to look good. That never lasted. Now I focus on highly visible areas, places I see every day. My coffee station, my kitchen counter, my bathroom counter. And that's because when those areas look good, my entire home feels more manageable. Even if the other areas are not perfect, visible wins create momentum, visible wins reduce overwhelm, and visible wins remind me that progress is actually happening. And sometimes that's what the ADHD brain needs. And you can see right here, my kitchen counter is a mess. There's a lot of stuff on that counter. And then I clean it off and you see the result after it's clean. Most of that stuff that was on that counter is moved off of it. And you do have just a couple of things still there that are on the counter that I actually need pretty much every day. ADHD home rule number 8 is the room reset before relaxing rule. Before I sit down to watch YouTube, before I sit down to watch Netflix, before I start scrolling on my phone, I reset one area. Not the whole room, not a deep clean, one area, one surface, one basket, one pile, that's it. And that's because small resets today create easier mornings tomorrow. And that's also why I love this rule. I'm not trying to clean the whole house. I'm not trying to create some perfect home. I'm simply making tomorrow a little easier than today. And that's because we're not trying to get ahead. We're trying to stop from falling behind. And you can see right here, I sit down, I'm getting ready to play video games. I actually grab my controller and then I realize, let me go reset an area. In this case, I have some pots that need to go back into the cabinet. I put those there and I also put silverware that needs to go into the drawer in the right place. ADHD home rule number 9 is the don't organize clutter rule. If you're like me, you probably have bought organizers or bins thinking that they're gonna solve the problem. I've done that a lot. The problem is, containers don't fix clutter. They organize clutter. So now I have a rule. Before I organize anything, I remove things first. Space creates organization, not containers. And here's the thing, the fewer things I own, the less I have to manage. The less I have to manage, the easier it becomes for me to keep up. And here's something important to remember. Less stuff equals less to maintain. And here's an example. I have bins and baskets I'm ready to organize. And then I have these cords and also this headset that are really cluttered. They don't work. And this headset does not fit my phone anymore. So they are cluttered. I look at the containers that are there, and instead of putting these things inside the container that is just clutter, I don't put them in those containers at all. And then I declutter those things. ADHD home rule number 10 is the buy one, remove one rule. This might be the most important long-term rule on the list. And that's because clutter doesn't usually explode overnight. It takes time. It grows quietly. One purchase at a time, one item at a time. Every item that comes into your home creates future work, future cleaning, future organizing, and future decisions. So I follow a simple rule. When something comes in, something similar goes out of my home. I get a new shirt, an old shirt goes out. I get a new kitchen gadget, the old kitchen gadget goes out, whichever kitchen gadget that is. I get a new coffee mug, a old coffee mug also goes out of my home. And so this rule keeps my home from slowly filling up over time. And that's because staying organized isn't just about managing clutter, it's about preventing clutter. And this rule helps me stop growth before it becomes a problem. And here's an example. I have an old control for my video game system. It doesn't work as well anymore, so I get rid of that as I bring a new controller into my home. So I'm not keeping the old one that is just gonna become clutter because I'm going to use a new one instead. And remember, we're not trying to get ahead, we're trying to stop from falling behind. Now, here's the thing. I don't follow these rules perfectly. Actually, nobody does. But every one of these rules helps me stay caught up enough so things don't spiral. And that's become my entire approach around managing my ADHD home. I'm not trying to get ahead, I'm trying to actually stop from falling behind. And that's because when you stop falling behind, keeping up suddenly becomes a whole lot easier. And if you want to know more about ADHD friendly strategies for your home, I do have a playlist that has videos inside it that will help you with that. When that box comes up, just click it, it will take you to that place and find the videos that work for your home.